I'm so happy to be here, talk to you and your friends. I know you're getting ready to take a big adventurous trip on your life path to become the doctor, scientist, nurse, pharmacist, physiotherapist, and physician assistant, and whatnot. Is that right? So I don't know what you want to hear from me, but I'll make it as interesting as possible. And I like this to be a very interactive session, so very active. And for now, I'll let you turn off your cameras, but I'll give a 10-15 brief minutes of presentation about what research I am doing. Then I'll open it for a question answer session. You can ask me any question. Okay, that way you'll come to know what I do. So let me share the screen. Oh, Sneha, can you enable that host feature?
Sorry, 1 second. I'm actually.
Did you do it? Make me a co-host. So
Okay.
go to your settings and then not yet.
Okay. I think I did it.
I got it. I think yes. Thank you, Sneha. Okay, can you see my slide?
Yes, sir.
Very good. Yeah. So you can stop me anytime. I won't take much time to show the slides because I don't want this to be a routine class or anything. I'm sure you may be bored of hearing too much over the slides, but just few brief slides. So most of my impressions to you will be given in the form of whatever path you chose, you will be crossing about this topic, developing new medicines. You may become a nurse, pharmacist, doctor, neurologist, neurosurgeon, or physiotherapist. It doesn't matter, even a healthcare worker, a volunteer. You do nothing and work in a hospital. Still, you want to know how medicines are developed. Okay, that's what is my job that I've been doing last 20 years. So I'm a professor at Texas A&M College of Medicine, and this is where I work. If some of you are Aggies, you know the familiarity of the campus, and it's a long journey, short history of my lab and pharmacology research at that's coming from my lab. This is a medicine that was approved in March 2019, approved by the Food and Drug Administration. When a medicine is approved, that means it is available in the clinic for the patients to use, which is considered as a milestone in the field. Now you see the vaccine approved. Now you see the COVID medicine approved. How much world is waiting for a new medicine? So sick patients. Postpartum depression is the disease that this medicine is used. So those patients may be waiting, just like we all have been waiting for the COVID vaccine, isn't it? They want the relief. So this medicine called brexanolone, other name is allopregnanolone. This was approved in 2019, and I did quite a bit of work to make this happen. Okay, and this was our news story, my contributions to the field that led this allopregnanolone molecule sailing all the way from bench to the clinical approval, but it is marketed by a company, not by me. Okay, and certainly this is a right moment for all the people working in this field, and more so to me and my lab. We have been working on this molecule for nearly 20 long years. How many? 20 long years. It takes that long to discover and introduce a medicine. So we have been working on a group of neurosteroids present in the brain. Human brain has amazing amount of substances. So we have been working on these substances that are present in our brain, but we don't know what they do. So by studying them, we are discovering new medicines for brain diseases. So generally, most of the compounds, they bind to receptor protein in the brain, and then they open the channel. And by opening and closing the channel, that's how they modulate the electrical currents in our brain, and that's how we study medicines in the in vitro and the in vivo models. And so we discovered that brain undergoes monthly cycles, just like menstrual cycle in women. We call that plasticity. So during the luteal phase in a typical female, there's a lot of hormone, so there's a lot of current. Okay, during the perimenstrual phase, the hormones level goes down and the current goes down, and that's why this is a vulnerable period to get any brain disease, epilepsy, postpartum depression, premenstrual syndrome, migraine. So this is a cyclical process. So not every woman, but few certain individuals. So based on this theory, how the molecular changes are happening in the brain, we designed this new treatment called Neurostar replacement therapy, me and my colleague Dr. Agaski. Because neurosteroids show great promise during withdrawal period, we thought that their deficiency is causing the disease. So just like hormone replacement therapy, insulin replacement therapy, we discovered the Neurostar replacement therapy for a variety of brain diseases, especially for perimenstrual catamenial epilepsy and related diseases that includes postpartum depression. So basically, you don't give the drug every day. You give a pulse therapy when it's needed. The last 5 days during perimenstrual period, or just about 3 days during postpartum period. It's not a once daily pill at all. As a result, there are no side effects. So research continued, and then now this drug, we have been working in this lab for many years. This is we are testing in for epilepsy. It's called ganaxolone, one of the same molecule related, but it has an extra methyl group here. It can be given in a pill form, much better. It's becoming first-in-class anti-epileptic. Right now, this molecule is in advanced clinical trials. So it takes a long and hard work to make basic discoveries that you use, and then it takes nearly 20 long years. For example, I started this work almost as a graduate student 22 years ago. Now see the progression, a number of papers, number of things published, and then I almost from a young boy just like you become great now. Look at me, I'm old enough now. So it takes that long to make any tangible scientific discovery, and you have to have that patience. You have to have that interest and passion. Anytime you give up, you're done. You do nothing. From 1998 to 2020, that is 22 long years. You had to continuously stay focused. The way you smile now in the undergrad, you should smile 22 years later. Then you will be successful. It doesn't matter what you do. I chose to do this pharmacology research. I'm glad that one of my work became a drug molecule being helpful for patients. Another one is very close to getting approved. So beyond that, I train a lot of students and then do research, drug discovery research. So brain. So that's my most passionate organ, and it's a very mysterious organ. And everybody has the same brain, but everyone is not the same. And somebody are talented, somebody is super talented, somebody are not so talented, somebody are happy, somebody are not so happy. Everything about this little organ that here, I study that. I've been studying this last 25 years. More likely I'll be studying another 15, 20 years more until I retire. Okay. So it's a brain is an amazing organ. It works like a parallel circuit. So you only have one computer and then very few circuits in the computer, in any mobile phone or anything. The brain has thousands of those. So now you're walking, you're seeing, you're watching, you're thinking, you're smelling, your hand is moving. All of this happening because parallel circuits in the brain. How do you understand? those circuits. What goes wrong in a disease? Those are the things that we are trying to do in a thing. So brain cell we call neuron. That's a single organ, single cell in the brain. That is a unit of the nervous system that we study. And then there are a lot of other tissues, a lot of cells, the glial cells and astrocytes. Neuron remains the main focus of research. So brain is just like a globe, it's almost in a globular fashion, not exactly in a circular. So you can easily get lost in driving when you go unknown places. So that's why you use GPS, okay, global positioning system. When you want to study, you have to use GPS, because when you venture inside the brain, it is like globe. You can get lost. You don't know how to come out of it. So that's why we use atlas, okay, to locate. For example, see, this many different islands exist in the brain, only one small 30 micrometer slice. So this many areas, can you possibly remember all of these names? These are more names than Houston downtown has, all the streets. So that's why, it's a much more complex an organ, but we are studying it. So neurotransmission, exclusively brain cells work by generating and conducting and then enjoying the electricity in the form of excitation and inhibition and oscillation. So human brain has 100 billion neurons, okay, that each of them makes 1,000 synapses, the contacts, okay, the branch. And each of these have nearly 100 trillion total synapses in our brain. We make synapses every single day, okay. So it's not a one-time thing, but you have finite number of brain cells. Either you are a baby, you have 1 billion neurons. Now also you have 1 billion. You can only grow very few thousands of neurons. 1,000 neuron here and there won't make big difference in 100 billion. The circuits that makes the difference. What circuit in your brain, that's what defines who you are you going to be a physician? You are going to make circuits. During the training process, you become a physician, a gymnast, a cyclist, a motorist, anything that you want to make, just nothing but making a new circuit in your brain. Okay, that's how plasticity is of the brain. It exclusively works through the electrical transmission. The impulses generated from one cell go to another. That's how they work. It's a milliscale, nanoscale also. You can't even imagine. So such a time scale that we had to time lag to even study them. So that's how we study brain cells, and the epilepsy is the disease that I study. Anytime the brain electricity goes wrong, we call them storm, just like thunderstorm. Our brain works through parallel circuits. If all circuits for somehow get synchronized, that's we call epilepsy. So then person falls unconscious, and then they have a lot of bad symptoms. So this is only one disease. Person loses consciousness. Anytime you lose consciousness, you're almost dead until you are aware, except the sleep. And during sleep, you don't lose your consciousness. You can be waken up with just one touch and one sound, but during epilepsy seizures, you can't wake up. So the seizure has to be over, and then quite a few patients, that is the last breath. They die of a seizure. Okay, so it is a fatal disease. So to understand, and that's what we study. We record EEG, the surface, because brain conducts electricity, so you can even read electricity. And you can even go a little bit into the brains to see the more electrical recordings. You can go into single neuron level or slice. You can study what is wrong with one neuron. Okay, you can study that one too. That's what we study in the lab. You can see the whole brain non-invasively without doing anything through MRI. You can see which area is damaged and which area is functioning and things like that. It's an amazing tool. So we use all of these to make medicines, okay, to discover new treatments for brain diseases. So we call new drug discovery. So new drug discovery happens because somebody has to think like a superhuman, isn't it? You have to think about how to make a medicine. Just like, for example, we discovered this year, the group of scientists working on COVID, they discovered the COVID drug, and the vaccine makers discovered a vaccine. But how does it happen? What's the process? So you may be a doctor, nurse, pharmacist, anything. At some point, you will be involved in developing a drug. Okay, what does it look like? But who exactly is developing the drug? the scientists developing the drug, but the top pharma companies, they kind of facilitate this process because they have billions of dollars of investments. For example, take a look at these big companies, all the way from Pfizer nowadays and all. This much money they make every year. Okay, a single company making $53 billion a year. Okay, and they reinvest some of it in the new medicines. A small company, government alone cannot do this job. That's why all these companies contribute. And then they all want to make the best medicine, isn't it? So what are the best medicines? For example, in 2018, these are the best medicines. Best medicines in a company perspective is the ones that have the biggest sales. For example, Humira, one of the biotechnology medicines that's selling about 13 billions a year. So that they think that it's a blockbuster drug. And same is true. For example, you take the drug like Ambrel that's used for rheumatoid arthritis, 4.8 billion. So anytime it has a good potential market and use, it's considered success. But success defines by the field where the target is. Right now, the need is oncology, a lot of cancers, a lot of brain diseases, respiratory diseases, diabetes, pain. They're all the top segments that need new medicines. And that's why I think, for example, you see top 200 medicines used worldwide. These are the top 200 medicines. If you see top 200 medicines in the Google, you will realize which direction the field is moving. Okay, who are the number of patients who need medicines? So that's how you'll come to know what's a need. And then the best selling medicines are discovered by people like me and other scientists. You could become one of them too. So these are all the life changing medicines. For example, take fluoxetine, the antidepressant, the sumatriptan used for migraine, the Keppra levetiracetam for epilepsy, olanzapine for schizophrenia, and donazepam for Alzheimer disease, and so on and so forth. I mean, for example, this year's drug remdesivir for COVID comes in this category because these are called blockbuster drug. Anytime the drug is benefiting millions of patients worldwide, and that's what you would want to discover and help patients. So, but how many medicines are discovered every year? Okay, not that many. You may be thinking, oh, hundreds and thousands. No, every year we can only discover and approve nearly an average about 22 medicines. This is the entire worldwide, entire globe, because US drives pretty much all the medical discovery right now. 80%, even up to 90% of the new medicine discovery happens in the United States. So whatever we do, that's a global. Okay, the remaining 20% comes from outside. So for example, only 22 medicines get approved on average every year. So these are the number of approvals every year. Sometimes more, sometimes less, but on average. So that means whatever effort you put, all the collective global efforts, still you can only discover and approve 22 medicines. That's a very, very slow process based on the needs, because there are millions of sick patients waiting for treatments. So there's a tremendous scope in medicine field to discover. For example, you may be knowing a patient who is treated with a drug but is not getting control. Okay. For example, right now, take example COVID. We don't even have a drug that can be given orally. Okay, you had to go to hospital to take the intravenous infusion, and that's again limited quantities. So that's why I think discovery is very, very essential here, because without the drug you may become doctor or nurse, still you can't do much. You still need this. So drug becomes the power tool in your hands to help the patient. Without the tool, you cannot get the work done. So, but the tool needs go through different stages. So discovery, development, and FDA approval phase. And then, these are history. These are historical persons. So these are all the famous drug discoverers. Okay, every scientist want to get into this picture. So all the way from John Langley, so all the way, up to recent, the antidepressant discoverer, Arvind Carlson, and in the statin, the Lipitor drugs like the cholesterol reducing drugs, Akiro Endo. So all these people are very, very famous. And at that time it's black and white pictures, but now it's color. So how many medicines are there in the whole world? I mean, the humanity. So total medicines that the entire scientist team introduced, 25,000. 25,000 are not in circulation right now. The most widely used, about 4,000 medicines that are widely used right now. And these only target 324 protein, whatever targets in our human system. That includes receptors, enzymes, channels, and proteins and genes. 324 targets are in the human, total targets, 266 in the human body, and 58 microbial targets, like bacteria, virus, and all. So that goes through the discovery phase, and then development phase, preclinical in animal studies, and clinical 1, 2, 3, 4 phase studies, and then the drug gets approved, and then it goes to market. So we call reverse funnel strategy. You have to screen quite a few compounds. Very few gets to preclinical stage. Only 1 or 2 gets into phase 3, and when phase 3 passes, then it gets approved. So if you try very many compounds, only one gets approved, which we call reverse funnel approach, and it takes a long time and very many patients. Phase 1 clinical trial, phase 2, and phase 3. So these are the number of subjects that you'll be testing. And so investment is the main thing in here. A small company and a small lab cannot do it alone. It has to be a collective big effort. So right now, around this time, the estimates for developing a new medicine is nearly $1 billion. So in 2019, estimates is about 1.3 billion to develop a complex medicine like a diabetes drug, hypertension, or cardiovascular drug. Same is true for this COVID vaccine. Each company must have invested $1 billion in developing that. So this failure rate is very high in medical development. What if the drug fails at phase 3? So the cost of failure is 75%. So you invest $1 billion and phase 3 it fails, so you lose $750 million. So that means a lot of investment to fail. So the failure rate is very, very high. That's why it's called high risk and high reward the business. So, but still, the outlook is very good in this healthcare industry. Healthcare industry nurtures nearly 20 million people. That includes all kinds of people. So it's one of the biggest biggest industry in the United States. So if you see the spending, medical spending alone, I'm talking about $235 billion are being spent on brand name medicines that account about 72% of the total spending. And then nearly 91 billion, which accounts to 28% is generic medicines. That means they're off patent. Okay, so that means there's a lot of possibility of brands becoming generics, and then as a result, the generics become a low-cost medicines. So the future is precision medicine. That means you can't empirically depend now. You had to use engineering, and then you had to use tools and technologies and computers to discover medicine and to deliver medical treatment. We call robo doctors. So that means Texas A&M introduced a new degree called NMed, engineering medicine, wherein we train engineers to become doctors. So they truly think that body is a machine, and then they try to fix this through mathematical precision. That's what is we think 21st century holds for engineering medicine. So I stop here and then open it for questions. Okay, I'll close the slides. That way then we can better focus on the discussion. Sounds good? Yeah. Feel free to ask whatever questions that you feel like. I know you're all young and aspiring and very energetic people wanting to do something, and I'm here to share my experience. Yes, Neha.
Hi, it's nice meeting you. I have one question. So how did you know you wanted to get into neuropharmacology? And like you stayed with it for 22 years, which is pretty crazy. Like, how did you know that's what you wanted to do?
Okay. First thing, correction. The 22 years are not crazy for me. I wouldn't have survived if it's crazy, okay? I survived because it's enjoyable. Anytime it's not enjoyable, just give it up. You can survive, okay? 22 years goes by so fast if only you enjoy the thing that you do. So I enjoyed doing it, and then whatever I got is a byproduct, a new drug, a new tool, and new medicine. The training that I gave to dozens of students that are getting trained in my lab, all of the byproducts. But getting there is a good question. It all depends on what you really wanted to do. most of the time you don't know what you wanted to do. You think that you want to become something. Right now you're only 18, 19, 20, 22 years old, and you really want to become a doctor. But sometimes you don't get into a medical school, you think that you're a failure. No, it's not. Later, after a couple of years, you really wish that your wish didn't come true. You could have, you must, you could have become better than a doctor, better than anything that you wish for. Okay, wish that your capabilities, okay, your potential be useful to the humanity or to the community, to whatever you want to serve, in an enjoyable way. Because if you are happy, you make your surroundings happy. Okay, don't think that you will be happy just because you wish to be a doctor or nurse, and by becoming that you will be happy. That will be transient. So if you look back, for example, I'm a pharmacist. Okay, I'm a board certified pharmacist. I wanted to be a pharmacist only to serve the patients, but later I realized that my ability to take this field forward is kind of is not happening just because I am sitting in the pharmacy and only counting the pills. I thought there could be bigger than that. But if I only settle down with just a pharmacist, probably I wouldn't have discovered the drug that I'm talking about. Probably I wouldn't have trained that many people that I trained. So these possibilities wouldn't have existed. But I didn't wish to become a pharmacologist to begin with, isn't it? I only wished to become a pharmacist. That's why be careful what you wish for, and always don't be disheartened if you don't make your wish to be a reality, because later over the period of time you realize that what is ahead of you, what you get, is much bigger than what you wish. Yep.
Thank you.
I have a quick question. So thank you so much, by the way, for coming, and I really learned a lot. And also, like, what kind of advice would you give to somebody that's interested in pursuing pharmacology or becoming a pharmacist?
So what kind of tools that I used to become a pharmacologist? Good question. So you keep it open, the possibilities. Okay, the tools change every day. Okay, you are just like your thoughts change. The tools that you have today are no good to tackle the problems that you might see tomorrow. So you have to constantly be looking out for new ways of doing, faster way of doing things. That will happen automatically if you are if you are open enough to accept them. Okay, so that means don't close your world. So just because you chose to be a pharmacologist, don't close your world. For example, oh, I'm only a neuropharmacologist, I am not interested in the COVID, which is a viral disease. Okay, don't do that. So then you are limiting yourself, isn't it? So what tools that can come in your way, that'll be helpful to whatever you're doing. Okay, that's a way of simple thinking. Okay, so the possibilities are that the nature will unfold itself for the process. So you just have to be there in the place. Okay, so that I call the real tools. So which I tell them consciousness. So you be conscious. Okay, be conscious about your surroundings, you be conscious about everything that you do, and then the tools will pop up. Okay, so as a result, those will enable you to succeed. For example, your goal is to get into medical school. What are the tools you need? Okay, you want good scores in the college, and an MCAT score, and a very good extracurricular activities, and you want to be as sharp as possible to convince the medical school admission committee that you would become the best physician. So keep all these open possibilities. Don't be overly ambitious to impress them. Okay, just go with what are your strengths, then you won't miss it. Okay, so that I call just using the naturally available tools that come in picture, whether it is in the research lab, whether it's in the pharmacy or in the medical school, where in the undergrad. I mean, if you keep your eyes open, I mean, you can see everything that's happening. Okay. So sometimes you can even see things by closing your eyes also, because your body will sense what's happening in your surroundings. So, and both tools are available at your disposal if you can see them. That's what I say.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
Hello, I have one question.
Yes, Uditi?
Yeah,
Very good. Sure.
I was just curious on why these drugs cost so much and like where does the spending go? Like the $1 billion.
Good. Very good question. So most of the spending is about the labor, the charges that so many people in the chain of discovery, the charge. It all starts with the suppliers, the raw material suppliers, the processors, and the storage, the inventory, the accountants, the clerks, the doctors, the nurses, even the patients. We had to put them in the hospital and treat them. And then, the patient attendants when they travel, airfare and all. So, and then the number of scientists that advise and work in the project, their salaries. And then these are all the labor costs involved in developing a medicine. The material costs are not that great. It's the labor costs that are huge. Everybody charged by hourly. Okay, a regular technician will charge $40 an hour. The topmost scientists charge $1,000 an hour fee to work on the project. Okay, whereas the janitorial will stop only work $10 an hour. So, irrespective of their skill level, everybody will add up, isn't it? Now you add up that over a period of 5 years. You're working on a new medicine for 5 years. So nearly 500 to 1,000 people are working on 5 years. So it'll cost millions of dollars, isn't it? So you have to pay the hospital, you have to pay the employees, and you have to pay the staff. So even when they don't work every single day, you still have to pay their salaries until the job is done. Now, on top of this cost is the cost of the advertisement. And because once you have the drug, people have to know it, isn't it? So that's why company spends a lot of money on advertisement, and that costs money too. If you have a drug and no one will buy it, how do you make profit? So a lot of money goes in advertisement, in the lobbying, in making different standards. So, but majority of it is the cost involved in the personnel. So that's what the costs are, and the costs are very high in the United States because the charges, for example, the doctor fee. Each time you visit a doctor, how much they charge. I mean, they may charge you a copay to you, a $20 copay, but they charges your insurance $200, and you only spend with your doctor 15 minutes. For 15 minutes, they're charging $220. So now that kind of cost builds up, and if he spends that much time, 15 minutes increments time in the drug discovery, you may be charging $5,000 a day for involving in the project. So all of these costs add up. So can you do this faster and cheaper? Yes. For example, this COVID time, we have proven that we can do it much faster if you all pool up people and resources together, and then investment come because there's a demand, and then the government involved in providing the money because it's a public health crisis. But for most diseases, it doesn't happen this way. So now the drug discovery will happen in 2 steps from now onwards. It will be pre-COVID drug discovery, which would take 5 long years. Now you will not have patients to wait for 5 long years. From now onwards, you expect the drug to be available within a year or 2 max. Because this year we have proven, isn't it? We delivered 2 different vaccines to the public within 8 months. So now public will expect new drugs to happen on a yearly basis. So now we have to enable that somehow through funding, so crowdfunding or maybe through collective effort. So previously companies were only involving 50, 100 or 200 people to develop one medicine that will take a long path. Now if you involve 1,000 and 5,000 and 10,000 people on one molecule, it will be greatly accelerated, just like in an industrial scale. So hopefully that's what I would imagine that drug discovery will look like in post-COVID era.
Thank you.
Sure.
Oh, I have a question regarding
Sure.
that.
Yep.
So now that it's post-COVID era, is the failure rate going, how is that going to be effective? Is it going to be decreased or maybe higher now that it's going to be more rapid?
Yeah, a good question. The failure rate depends on the complexity of the system. The COVID virus, the SARS-CoV-2, is such a tiny molecule and a very simple structure. You can destroy it in 1,000 different ways. Okay, a bacteria is much more complex. Okay, a parasite is a little more complex. Okay, but humans are the most complex organs. So now, which disease you're targeting? Viral disease is easy to target. You use soap and you can clean, and the virus is gone, isn't it? For a human disease, you can't do that. You have to put a medicine in the body, it has to go there. And if you have to kill a bacteria and virus in our body, it's easy. Okay, you take a pill and you'll go and kill the virus. But if you have to treat a heart disease, if you have to treat a brain disease, it gets 1,000 times complicated. So now as a result, our failure rate is very high, isn't it? So you can discover easily an antiviral drug. You cannot discover easily an anti-epileptic drug. Okay, that's why our failure rate will be very high for most human diseases that are not anti-infectives and antibacterial and antiviral drugs. Okay, that's why, for example, we have so many autoimmune diseases. I mean, can we deliver the same monoclonal antibodies that we delivering for SARS-CoV-2? I don't think so. It's not that easy. So because of the complexity, because of the science that is very complex in our body, that will make us to underestimate, and as a result, we fail. So that's why we have to keep trying what works. So as a result, the failure rate will still be high until we use the precision medicine, until we know how every cell in our body works, and then use that knowledge to precisely target it. And right now, we don't have that kind of tool. And we are imagining some of you and your friends, when you become the scientist, that will become 21st century scientists, new tools, new thinking, new way of doing business in research. It will be faster and more precise, I hope.
Thank you.
I have a quick question,
Sure.
Jaden. So I was looking on your profile and I saw that like you also work with military medicine. So like what kind of medicines would you like make for the military and those kind of things you develop?
Good question. So when soldiers go out in the field, whether during a war, during regular combat exercises, they met with a lot of injuries. One of the injuries is brain injury. When they fell down from, anything, maybe a crash, helicopter crash, or, a training accident, or, maybe a bomb explosion in the roadside, or a vehicular accident. So these puts these soldiers at high risk for brain injuries, and brain injury happens. Then naturally, there are a lot of brain diseases that happen from the brain injury. So one of it is epilepsy. So brain injury is one of the great dominant form of acquired epilepsy. So apart from the genetics, you have some bad genes, you get epilepsy. But in the case of acquired, brain injury causes epilepsy. A lot of soldiers, if you see any VA hospital, a lot of veterans who retired, who had a brain injury, a lot of them had epilepsy. So we study how to prevent brain injured soldiers from getting into serious diseases, whether it is epilepsy, whether it is any cognitive impairment or dementia, any other further diseases. So that's one disease we study. We call post-traumatic, we call that traumatic brain injury. And then in the war or in the combat, they use a lot of chemical warfare. Remember, they use a lot of gases, a lot of chemicals. What if a soldier is exposed to one of the neurotoxins? So that's another interest of mine, to safeguard. If an enemy exposed our soldiers to any of these gases and other chemical, how can we safeguard the soldiers by protecting their neurons and things? So by developing antidotes, that's what I study. So, and then some some soldiers got exposed to some unknown mysterious during their Gulf War. We call it as Gulf War syndrome. We don't know what they got exposed, because when they're trying to topple the Saddam Hussein government in Persian Gulf War, there are a lot of things happen. The oil fields are burning, a lot of chemical thing, a lot of dust, a lot of heat in the desert. So many soldiers, when they returned after the war, they had the problem of Gulf War syndrome. They can't sleep, they have pain, they have bad memory and all. So now they need medicine. So we don't have medicine for Gulf War syndrome. So I'm trying to understand and trying to see if some of the medicines that we have will work. So these are the projects that we are doing in the lab for helping the military medicine.
Thank you.
I have a question. So, how
Sure.
did you motivate yourself for 22 years while you were working on the same drug?
Good question. So it's like this: if the goal is worthwhile, I mean, the goal itself will will add fresh energy to you every day. Okay, so the goal is, if you feel like helping your friend, you will make some time for them, isn't it? So, I mean, if you don't feel like helping, I mean, there's no motivation for you. So it's as simple as that. Of course, it's a tough thing, anytime, because these are all real world scenarios. It's not a classroom situation, okay? So in the real world scenario, I mean, if the goal is so noble or so energizing and so intense, that will bring a lot of interest to you, because no matter how many hurdles you face, no matter how many nasty people you encounter in the process, no matter how many people will kind of demotivate you, no matter how your life changes with so many steps. You get married, you will have children, you relocate to different place, sometimes you relocate to different country altogether. Still you have to still you have to keep the goal as the centric. Okay, the place and the time and everything is all relative. The goal remains the main centric, and as a result, then you only see the goal. You don't see what's behind you, what is besides you. Okay, and if that happens, you wake up every morning, and then you might see problems, but you're there to address those problems. So that's how I think. It's like this. When you're happy, things all look easy, and when you're sad, when you're miserable, everything looks daunting. So as a result, in a day, in a typical day, when you have so many problems, your day seems to be very tough and very lengthy. But it's not lengthy or tough. It's same 24 hours. You have same 24 hours. A guy with happiness and joyful guy, for them 24 hours seems to be just like that. So tough world, but I mean, if your goal and if your pursuits are noble, and if you enjoy doing them, I'm sure energy will come automatically.
Thank you.
Sure.
What would you say the most interesting project you've ever worked on?
Yeah, I mean, we call them milestones. Okay, the milestones are not stationary. Okay, because it's just like the world moving. When the world moves, everything moves. You don't have to move with it. The globe is moving, isn't it? We are not moving right now. So how fast the globe is moving? Can you calculate the speed? It's 3 miles per second, but we're not falling into the space. 3 miles per second. No, we cannot achieve with any kind of rocket. The globe is moving with 3 miles per second speed, and it's determining the everything, time and space thing. So same is true. Our goals are not constant. We are not happy with only one thing. It's always changing. Stepping stone. One builds the other. Other builds other. First you want to get into college. Then postgraduate college, and then postdoctoral training. Then but there are a lot of pleasurable, we call joyful moments, because our brain, because I'm a brain scientist, I only can tell you in the brain language. Our brain only can remember moments. It cannot remember time. Okay, so the happy moments it will remember, the bad moments it will remember. Okay, But what happened yesterday, all 24 hours, it will not remember. But the few very joyful and memorable moments, even if they are 20 seconds worth, you will remember them. So one of it that you encounter every day or every few days. Say, for example, I train a lot of students in my lab. If one of them get into medical school, that I consider as a joyful situation. Okay, I consider that as one of the milestones. Now imagine that that student going to medical school or graduate school will multiply the training that I gave to him. Okay, so that becomes my milestone joy. Same is true if I crack a tough problem in the lab, that'll become my milestone for the joy. So I only remember the joy. I didn't remember how many days I spent trying to crack the problem. So that's why I think it's these moments that you accumulate over the period of time that become your chain of, because they keep reverberating in your circle in your brain, just like globe is moving so fast. Those moments will make rounds in your brain. And then that's why you either look full joyful, or if those moments are all negative, you look miserable. So that's why I try to build as many positive, as joyful moments when they keep driving. So each time we achieve a milestone, then that's what's happened, and it keeps changing. It's never the same. What you are, the stage, the time, place you are, that determines. You're a student. You want to get to next level. That's your milestone. But that will change after 4 years, isn't it? Now you want to do better things. Yeah, I mean, so I take that view of the joy that comes from the work, and then, but it's not easy. But when you make it, you forget all the hardship that you faced. Even the joy could be 20 seconds long, but the hard work could be even a week. You will not remember the week, but you only remember the 20 seconds.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right, I have a question. I have just one quick question.
Sure.
It's more of a general question, but I'm curious about what your answer is to this. Can a substance that is considered a drug be naturally produced in the body?
Yes. Any chemical substance, whether produced in our body or in the plants or you synthesize, when it is given back, I mean, when it's given exogenously in quantities that are necessary to treat or prevent a disease, we call them a drug. For example, the best is insulin. When somebody is diabetic, we give insulin. It's the same compound that we've been producing to regulate glucose. So when somebody needs a steroid hormone, we give them steroid hormone because their body is unable to produce enough quantities. For example, a lot of people need thyroxine replacement because their thyroid gland is not producing enough hormone. We make synthetically and give them back. So it's a drug. So it, irrespective of the source, when it's given to a subject or patient to treat and reduce a disease, we call them a drug. A drug means a medical drug, not a street drug like heroin or cocaine. No, I mean, drug has been misused. The name has been misused very popularly in the street. A drug in the medical sense means the drug, the medicine that we use clinically, that we call drug. it's not the it's not the street form of the drug.
Mm-hmm. So something like melatonin would be considered a drug.
Yes, when you take, for example, to promote sleep, you are taking, then it's called a drug. Anything that you produce endogenously, it's yours. It's not a drug, isn't it? Because your body knows how much to produce, when to produce. Okay, so we never call them as drugs. Anytime you take exogenously from outside, it's a drug.
All right, thank you very much.
I had like a small question about the clinical trials.
Sure.
So do you have to like have a certain status to start them? Like, for example, like, do you have to have certain papers published or a degree or something? How does that process work?
Not necessarily. I mean, this is, I think, that flexible an industry, healthcare industry, to involve in the research, you should be knowledgeable and then you should have right skills, but you don't have to have an MD degree or PhD degree. I mean, a lot of the CEOs of these companies, they're not doctorates. Okay, and a lot of these scientists that are involved are also not doctorates. But nowadays, I think most of them are acquiring a doctoral degree, a terminal degree, or even a business degree or a law degree, just because the complexity of the field is such that without the terminal degree, your knowledge seems to be incomplete compared to your colleagues. Okay, so why you would want to be at disadvantage down the road in your path? So better you acquire the maximally possible terminal degree, whatever the field. If it's a pharmacy, acquire the PharmD degree. If it's a science, PhD. If it's a medicine, MD. If it's a law, just acquire a JD. Just acquire the terminally highest possible degree that you want to acquire, then face the world. So that now you can face the world much better. And then the degree may not bring much other than ornamental. But you know, when you wear an ornament, you feel confident, isn't it? That's why we wear so many ornaments. They have no value to the body, but they bring certain confidence. So degrees are kind of ornament. You know, after my name, I have 4 or 5 different FFFF like that things. They're all my ornamentations. They speak about what I achieved, so that's convey the level of the degree of knowledge that I have. The question is, are they essential to succeed in my field? Not necessarily. Okay.
So, no, I was just asking because like I know, do you do like you I'm not sure if you do like human trials or not. That's why I was like curious about that.
Yes, yeah, you can still involve in human trials without even MD degree, without even a PhD degree. And so actually, even 50% of all the trials are being handled by non-doctorates, like the coordinators and the nurses, and then the technicians. So the high-level guys are the doctors and doctorates. There are only few in number, a director, but coordinators are many in number. The director is only one guy or one girl. So as a result, you have more people, but these are all trained. I mean, the clinical trial coordinators, and they collect the data. I mean, they design the trial, they are involved. So the largest workforce in the clinical trial industry, these are mostly non-doctorates, but they have a suitable training and knowledge. They attend, they must have taken a course, masters in clinical trials or related fields, or they worked in the clinical trial industry for many years that they know everything. So this is a knowledge-driven industry, the pharma industry. So degree means nothing if you don't have knowledge. Okay, degree is to acquire that knowledge. Okay, but with the degree, if you have no knowledge, you're not going to succeed.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Are there any last questions?
Sure. Are there any questions on the chart or somewhere?
I can ask one more question.
Sure.
What about isn't there grant writing, and isn't that like very, very competitive since there's such a high failure rate and you need funding? How is that?
Good question. Yeah. Grant funding is a tough thing because the chances of you getting a grant is 10%. So that means if you write 10 grants, only one gets funded if you're lucky. Lucky in the sense everybody writes good science. I mean, there's no bad science. Science is science. So it's relative importance, whether your project versus your friend's project, which has a higher impact, which has a higher practical application, and which has more strengths than weaknesses. That's how it picks up. So if you can write a grant which has more strengths and less weaknesses, you're likely to win funding. And the funding defines your level playing field. If you have money, you can do science. If you don't have money, you can't. So that's why a lot of academicians, they do a lot of, they put in a lot of hours to get this grant funding, and that in turn is fed to the graduate students and postdoctoral fellows and technicians. So it's a very, very competitive field, but it's needed, isn't it? I mean, there's no unlimited money in the government or anywhere to give out for research. So the limited amount of money will be given to the best research possible. And that's why the whole world looks up to the United States model. I mean, this model is more meritorious. I mean, every meritorious person that comes into this country from anywhere in the earth, I mean, they like the system. So when they apply a grant and if it's meritorious, they get funded, no matter whether they are disadvantaged or advantaged, whether they're connected or not. So the science speak. And then say, even if you get a grant, luckily one time, you're not going to sustain it for next, because each grant is only 5 years. So you have to get every 5 years renewal and renewal. If you do nothing in the first 5 years, you're not going to get funded next time. So now, for example, I am 22 years long, means I've been funded for nearly 17 years. So that means they're liking my science. Otherwise, I would have closed my lab in the first 5 years itself. Yeah.
Thank you.
I think Ellie has a question.
Yeah, I just have a quick question. So I recently started working for a lab at school that is trying to repurpose FDA-approved drugs to treat peripheral nervous system disorders. And I was wondering how common it is, for groups of people to try to repurpose drugs for a different disorder versus starting from scratch.
Good question. It's not uncommon these days, because I told you, I mean, starting from scratch costs $1 billion and 5 to 10 years long. And then, in case if it doesn't work, then you lose 75% investment. For a lot of small companies and academic institutions, that's not possible. So they would pick up the existing drugs that are used for other diseases because they are proven to be safe and they're readily available. And if you try different diseases, if they're efficacious, why not? I mean, that's how it works, For example, the remdesivir that we have been using now for the COVID isn't discovered for COVID. It was tried for the Ebola virus. Unfortunately, it didn't work in the Ebola virus. It was sitting on the Gilead company's shelf for last 10 years, just idle. And someone just pulled it, just like what you said, repurpose. Tried for the COVID virus, it worked. So yeah, a lot of times, there's a lot of things that you can do, but for every disease, you may not be able to invent like that. So since repurposed drugs sometime, because they are limited in number, and then once you exhaust the repurposing, then you have to start fresh.
Thank you.
Very good.
Okay.
Yeah. So go ahead, Sneha.
Oh, I was just gonna ask if there are any more questions.
I have a question.
Sure.
Did you aim for a different profession when you were younger before becoming a pharmacologist?
I mean, your question is, did I dream of becoming somebody?
Yeah, because you mentioned earlier that the road always changes, or like things change.
Exactly, yeah. So when you are in school, the wide possibilities, you can dream of anything you want to become. By the time you get college, pretty much it'll narrow down. So if you take liberal arts, then that defines your path. If you take pre-med, that defines your path. So I took pre-med, and then as a result, my path has been narrowed to the only health science track. So within the health science, you have two choices, either becoming a doctor or becoming a pharmacist. Of course, you can become a nurse. But back then in India, male nurse is not a concept. So the pharmacist is an easier option than a doctor, because the getting into medical school is much tougher than getting into pharmacy. So it all depends on where you are, you know. So if you think it's a long road to get into medicine versus pharmacy, then pharmacy is the shorter road to getting into the school. So I chose the pharmacy. So I got in. So then once you got in the pharmacy, there is no look back, then you don't have any other choice other than sailing through that path. So that's all it happened. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. But good thing, to continue that question is that would that limit your capabilities and your potential? No. Don't think that you chose a path doesn't mean that you got stuck. Here I am today teaching medical students. Okay, I'm a pharmacist. People think that what business I have to teach medical students? My knowledge. That's all. It's not my degree, isn't it? So do I have to have an MD degree to teach medical students? No, you don't. So that means the possibilities exist for you to acquire new knowledge and new skills. And then within your level playing, within your track, you can expand your horizon. So it's all the possibility that are within your reach. I mean, if you don't try, you don't go nowhere. But you keep walking, keep walking, and you see the more roads, more small roads coming in the way. And then, but don't make circular path. Okay, that means circular path means don't deviate every 1 minute. What happens every 1 minute you deviate, you go around circle. You go nowhere. So keep moving in straight lines, you will reach somewhere. Yeah. So
Thank you, Dr. Reddy, for speaking for us. All of your answers were so in depth. I hope you enjoyed it as much as we all did. For our members, you can go to our website to subscribe to our site and register for future events, and stay connected with us and follow us for more updates on our link tree. I'll send the links in the group chat right now. Thank you for joining us. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you, Dr. Reddy.
sure, yeah. Thank you, Sneha. Thank you, your friends, and I hope you and your team enjoyed this talk. And certainly a pleasure to see you all bright and very energetic team. And I wish you good luck with whatever you wish for. Okay, bye.
Yeah.